entertainment, really, whatever you get into, because you're not part of this shit. You came here to use this shit to keep this shit in order as the caretakers, the original motherfuckers, the original spirits of the earth, back in human form. Y'all knew we was coming. They knew this shit was gonna get cleaned up. They knew this shit can't go on forever. Considering I wouldn't give a fuck how bad this shit get. This many mothers can't keep praying and earth don't answer in one form or a motherfucking another. So this is the answer. So from here, I'm gonna go finish writing my post. But this is the update. This shit is a fucking wrap, right? This shit finna get moving 100 miles an hour now. The Queens then went one-on-one with the Great One, and we didn't prevailed over this shit. Tit for tat, forth and back on the dragon dance. Off the left hand and the right hand from the straight bump. This shit motherfucking a rap. Now, for all of y'all that don't know y'all culture, your ancestors is never gonna lead this bitch where you don't have a remedy for the redemption of this motherfucker we call Earth. Whether you think it's flat, convex, concaved, domed, round, oval, lopsided, elongated, it don't fucking matter, cause y'all all right. As a creator, your perception will mold this motherfucking 3D reality into whichever one of these earths you see. The planet's gonna line up however, as the God form, you say they supposed to line up. I said a while back I wasn't gonna address the... So, we get into agreements and soul contracts without knowing, because we wasn't woke, all the way woke. We wasn't really aware of what we were doing, so we got caught in a contract. So we need to know how to get from under those contracts. Now those contracts or those agreements, blood rights, and soul contracts, they all have an exit. It's supposed to. If you got a tattoo, it should have a meaning, or you shouldn't have it. The soul contract can be broken amicably, which means no harsh side effect land on either side of the agreement. There's no consequence to breaking it if it's done amicably. Two people sit down and say, look, this wasn't working. And like in the case where all you have to do is exchange a drop of blood apiece. And I'm going to go through the ritual. I'm going to explain the ritual of severing the blood oath amicably. But before I get into that, there's another way to sever the blood oath non-amicably. Now, the person that's aware of the blood oath can do serious damage to the other person's entire life by breaking it one-sided because of whatever their grievance. Because anytime you break an oath, in order to break the oath, you have to vex the grievance unless it's an amicable severance of the agreement. So whatever grievance you vex is the punishment that that person incurs if it's truthful. So let's say that you had a blood oath, you had a piercing with a chick, y'all got married, then y'all got divorced, and you just realized that you was in the blood oath with her. So you can solo sever that blood oath and ruin her life. But let's say she was really a good chick and you just can't get in touch with her to break the oath. You can't break the oath without vexing the grievance one-sided. It has to be a two-sided severance of the agreement, or you have to vex a grievance. Now, if your grievance in which you severing the oath with is the absence, you can try to offer a talisman of protection to the other person because you don't know how to get in touch with them, and you would put that in your grievance. You know, so and so, most caring and loving. Um, Only grievance is the absence of the person in my presence. You know, and then you can sever it. Then minimizing, it's still going to get a side effect because it's a one-sided breaking of the contract or the oath. And so the um, the contract is a little different than the oath, the blood oath or the blood right oath. When you take a blood right, that is more binding than any other form of magic. When you use your blood in a ritual, and sometimes we don't even understand we performing an arcane ritual that tribal ancestors perform until we start waking up and we start to remember these things, and we be like, holy crap. And sometimes we don't wake up and remember, and we might run across it in a textbook or a research manual or something where somebody did research on a tribe that we was investigating because we thought we was linked to it, and find out we were, and that this was one of our practices, like marriage. You know, you got different marriage ceremonies around the world that do set up for different purposes. So when you get ready to sever a blood oath, the best way to do it is amicably, because it is the most harshly punished of all of the oaths. So um, that it should absolutely be severed amicably and in person between the two people. Because if you have a blood oath contract, it's the same as what was said in John Wick. The guy, De San Antonio, whatever, D'Antonio told John Wick that to make a blood oath is to bind a soul to a contract before God. It is an unbreakable oath. So when you decide to break a blood oath, it should be done amicably, or you can really ruin a person's life by a one-sided severance of that oath or that agreement that was made in blood. So the easiest one, like I say, to sever is a verbal contract made by a 3 times agreeing to something. You can sever that one one-sided and minimize the side effect to the other person. Some of y'all won't care, and y'all just sever the oath, and y'all don't care if the person's whole life is effed up. And some people might have done something to you where you feel they deserve that. That's up to you. But then there's some people that's going to have people that was good in their life, that life circumstances, they not together no more, where those people not in their lives, and they need to sever the oath in order to clear their spirit field, the auric field of the other person's binding influence. And so you have to perform a ritual of shedding of the blood. Blood in, blood out. It's the same thing the gangbangers tell you. Blood in, blood out. So if you did a blood ritual to enter it, you have to do a blood ritual to exit it. So in the case where a blood ritual was performed, and you may have at the time been unaware that you were signing the blood oath, and then you want to sever this blood oath with the other person, this is a process. both people have to come together and they have to sit down and vex their grievances to each other. And if they don't have grievances and they don't want to sever, one of them might not want to sever the oath. Or both of them might not want to sever the oath, but because they didn't never know it was in play to that magnitude. In which case, they won't vex grievances, they will vex agreements. And that's the exact opposite of a grievance. Like, instead of saying, I don't like the way you treated me, you ran out with the neighbor and slept with the dog, you would say something more to the contrary, like, you was good to me, you treated me fair when other people treated me unfair, and you'd run down the good things and you say, I want to uphold my portion of the oath. At this point, the other person has the option to allow you to uphold your portion as long as you release them from any obligation to upholding their portion. That's a one-sided release of a contract. But that's the same as you swearing allegiance to somebody's personal servant or slave, depending on what the blood oath was commemorating when you done it. So if both people don't have anything really negative or any grievance to vex, then they uphold those truths that they think is binding to the relationship, and they swear allegiance to the blood oath, and whatever it was, they would repeat it in order to strengthen the oath. So in the case of like a piercing, the piercing might have closed, they'll get the piercing reopened to what's up, Daniel? They'll get the piercing reopened to reaffirm. In the case where a tattoo might be faded, which may be a contributing factor to the deterioration of a blood oath relationship, and that's why you should use non-fading ink, tattoo ink, period. Because when they start to fade and they charge with certain energies, the energies become weaker. And if it was like a commemoration of a relationship, as it fades, so does the relationship. But it's still there. So what it does is pushes the relationship into the background because it's fading now. It's fading, but it can't go away because the blood oath signature is still present. And this is where you get that term years ago, signing it in blood. Because when you signed it in blood, then only God can break that contract before it's fulfilled unless both people agree. Normally when God break that contract like that, he'll make you carry it out in another lifetime or in another galaxy or universe or however you want to say it. So once you get done vexing the grievance or the agreement, it depends on how you want to handle this blood oath. But in this case, we're talking about severing it. So we're not going to go into too much into the maintenance of the blood oath. The severing of the blood oath, you can take a little glass of water, about like a 4-6 ounce glass of water, and both people prick their finger to get a drop of blood like you're doing a diabetic test. A single drop of blood is all it takes. And when you put the single drop of blood in the water, you say, you know, with my blood I made this oath, with my blood I break this oath, and you put it in the water, and the other person do the same, and when you both have it in there, you take the water outside, which you probably should have been doing outside to begin with, but people do things in their own style, which makes it more effective anyway. But then you take it out to the ground. So now it's in the water, you know what I'm saying? The water is carrying the blood to the grounding of the earth. The earth is going to ground out the contract. It's going to sever the contract. And you can make your own rituals up along these lines. These are just guidelines. But in the case where you got the 2 drops in the water, and you already said, with my blood I make this oath, with my blood I break this oath. Remember, blood in, blood out. When you pour it on the ground, you ask Mother Earth, you know what I'm saying, to honor the severing of the oath by absorbing the water and the blood. And if y'all pretty much done after that, if you can carry on to a ritual closing, or y'all can just turn and walk away and don't look back at each other once you sever the oath, and that's where y'all at. As far as the maintenance of it, there's no further obligation once the oath has been mutually severed. So when two people sever the oath, the blood oath, then that's it. You don't have anything to do unless you create it in your own mind. The bond will break. A lot of times we find ourselves attached to people that we can't stand and we can't figure out why. We've probably done some kind of blood oath or a pain rite, which is a lot of the times what domestic violence situations, continuous pain rites, and we looking at it from a three-dimensional psychological standpoint, but we never looking at the spiritual implication of the domestic violence. It's also a pain rite. It's what them Catholic priests do to them kids by torturing them before they can get the adrenochrome. It's a pain rite. Yeah, so when they get their adrenochrome from the babies, exercising those pain rites, and they use all kind of torture techniques and to issue pain, but that's to keep the atmosphere's vibration low enough so they can stay here. But it ain't gonna be able to be that low much longer because the people are beginning to wake up. And once they start severing these contracts, because it boils down to conserving your own energy. When you tie to a soul contract, somebody else is sharing your energy with you. And if you don't get that contract severed successfully, you will always be sharing your energy. You'll always have a leak. Something will always be amiss when you try to walk your path, and you're not going to know what it is because you got a soul contract drawing. Your energy is leaking. That's improper energy conservation, and you can't sustain a good forward progress being trapped in a soul contract situation. It'll always sabotage you in some way. Like if it's a guy who made a soul contract of fidelity to a female, every time he try to date, he's gonna suffer unrequited love. He can't escape it because he made an agreement. And that agreement was fidelity. But you can marry somebody and that not be part of the marriage. Every marriage is not monogamous, just like every marriage is not polygamous. You got different groups of people that have different characteristics and traits. Some people are supposed to be monogamous, some supposed to be celibate, and some supposed to be part of a polygamous situation. All of these are contingent upon the contracts made. The tribal clan you come from, you can check your totem. Your totem always come to you, but you probably don't pay it much attention. It comes to you in dreams, visions, pops up on the TV screen to check on you, and you never know what that was. So I try to always give people the information that other people hide from them. And this is one of the things that they hide from us a lot, is the soul contracts and the severing of the soul contracts. The blood oaths and the severing of the blood oaths. They'll tell you how to make a pact, an agreement with the devil, but they won't tell you how to break it. They won't tell you how the devil didn't perform the contract as he said he was, that you can take his soul the same as he can take yours. They don't tell you none of that. So I'm going to try to always give y'all something that ain't nobody else going to give y'all. And the breaking of the blood oath is the one that very few people know how to do. They know how to make them, make pacts and agreements and stuff like that, but they do not know how to sever a blood oath, either amicably or individually. But once you sever it individually, whoever the other person is, they had to have had an ample opportunity, or you had to do what they call due diligence in trying to contact them to sever the oath, and you have to state that intention to the universe or God or whatever you want to call it. But once you've done that, it's going to be a consequence for one-sided breaking of a blood oath or a blood right. You can't do it one-sided without the other person suffering the consequence, especially since you have to vex the grievance. The best you can do to try to help them is to minimize it, as I said earlier, but those blood oaths are the most powerful oaths on earth. So, I'm going to look through here and see if anybody had any questions about what I was talking about. And, okay. I'm going to check on you, Carmen. So I think I got it. That's what I always say on God, because it's in here. Yeah. When you say on God, you're talking about on yourself. You're the only God that's going to save you. And the helping hand you looking for is where, Zoe, the end of your own arm, right? So, yeah. So I just had that on my mind because I had a situation where in meditation I kept being tied to somebody and I couldn't break that connection. I couldn't figure out why. But as I kept going over it and going over it, I realized that it was a soul contract and it was tied together through a blood oath. And we also have residual things from past lives that bring us back together in this one. So all of those things converging is make it hard to sever that bond. And also I wouldn't want to sever that bond in a manner that would bring that person damage because they was only good to me. But that bond has to either be attended to or severed. It can't just be left. Yeah, well, the sexual energy, the sex energy is twin energy to spirit energy. You can charge the sexual fluids, and when they come into the three-dimensional world, they will manifest something from the physical, from the spirit world into the physical. You moved it from spirit to physical by a... Marquette used to be a castle. So Michigan was always heavily populated with the organic people on the land. Michigan is a very instrumental site in our history, right? We got partial cities under Lake Michigan, great cities in the bottom of Lake Erie that was once above water that ended up, for whatever reason, being sunk. So yeah, then you had the Ohio Indians. They were mostly the Browns that was from the Ohio Valley. It was a huge, huge fucking tribe. That's why you meet so many different people last name Brown. That was a ginormous family clan. And some of the colors, green, white, were affiliates for different reasons. Some was named that for the color of the textures of their blankets. They might have made a blanket that was primarily white for whatever reason, for ceremonial purpose. And then they would carry the name White as a last name. But then you have those that came from Europe with the last name White that indicated something different, right? So when we're looking at the tribes, most of your mascots from sporting teams is named after tribes, no matter what the name of it is. Like the Piston is named Pistons after the piston that goes in the engine as an auto worker city. But the piston is also a metaphor for horsepower. And this is why some of the Detroit Pistons um, um, paraphernalia have a horse head in the logo, because the piston, though it represents the part of an engine, and some of the old piston paraphernalia had a literal piston, the piston is a metaphor for horsepower. And if you got good pistons, you're going to generate good horsepower. So we always had tribes up here. The Seminoles is an admixture of all of the tribes across the land who went to fight the Spanish Armada at one point, the French and the English, in what we call the southeastern United States region, Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia, going into Arkansas and Alabama. So they also was settling from those areas, and they called them Seminoles because it was an admixture of tribes as far away as the Polynesian Islands and Alaska, going west and south, than tribes coming as far away in South America as southern Venezuela or Brazil. So we had tribes coming from everywhere, and because we was an admixture of so many different tribes fighting to keep these people from occupying the territory, we picked up the name Seminole, which means mixed breed or half breed. In the Spanish were the ones who called us the Seminoles. Let me see. Cherokee is not an original name. It's a name that was used as what you call a concealer. The tribal name, if you look up the etymology, is going to start with an I and not a CH. This is how you know that when they changed it, they didn't follow Grimm's Law of Grammar in the transliteration. They just gave you a whole different name. That's because the Cherokee was the ones used to conceal the Dawes Road Indians. It was one of the tribal distinctions used that was created for Native Americans, not the organics of the land. So this is what they was doing. They was replacing names to confuse the bloodlines. The Golden Dragon clans of Japan, that's the family of Anu that got trapped on Earth. It's not a it's not a lot really to say about them, but almost any of the emperors who call themselves an emperor of Japan will trace their lineage back to what they call the golden dragon in the sky. And that golden dragon is the Asian symbol for Anu, the golden father. And the Anu is the tribe that currently hold the highest concentration of Anu's blood on Earth. And they in Japan. So I hope that answered your question. That's exactly why you have Cleveland Browns. The Shoshone are today condensed down to the last name of Shaw. The Shaw Indians came to fight in the Seminole Wars just like all the rest of us, and they was originally a little more Washita mound builders from the Mississippi Delta region going into Louisiana. and they were one of the major tribes on the land over here. The culture is, they got people from the culture that write about the culture. All you have to do is start reading up on it, and you will find out more than you could possibly imagine. Kilpatrick was the designation of the ones who came from Scotia, the sister of Scotta. They called them Kilpatrick because of what St. Patrick was doing. He was trying to kill them. And when they came over here, they was telling the natives that St. Patrick was killing them, and they called them, they thought they was telling them that their name was Kilpatrick. It's funny you would it's funny you would mention that. Kwame is what made me investigate that name from Detroit. And he was one of the chiefs that they shouldn't have been able to. He did that to himself, though. Yep, the tribes of Australia is a admixture of Inky and Anu's children on Earth. Um, the family name Edwards. I haven't done the background on Edwards, but I did run across that in some paperwork before, but I didn't do the research to dig into the name. The 8-year-old should be learning, you should get an IQ reading program. By now she's starting to read. You want to get her into speed reading. Stop trying to teach her shit. The only thing you should be teaching her is speed reading, and let her read what she want out the library, right? And she will learn faster that way than you trying to force her to learn. At 8 years old, focus on teaching her to speed read and focus her on math. It's a math program called Mega Math that teaches math, accelerated math. There's one called Mega Reading that teaches accelerating reading. And then you got Mega Memory that teaches memory techniques. But all that stuff is old that I just named. There is expanded and updated versions of all three of those things under different names. The word back on the Three Kings is keep watching. No, I'm answering the questions in the comments, sweetie. I didn't get you this time, but I'm gonna try to get you next time.